Hey, what's up guys? It is Carly here, bringing you episode number 9 of my entire horror movie collection. We are almost done with the DVDs. I was going to finish them all off in this video, but I realized there's kind of a lot and the video would be way too long, so I decided to kind of break it up, and I'm only going to do 20 DVDs at a time now until we're done, which will probably only take one more video after this, and then I'll be on to the Blu-ray. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it where we left off last, which is with Suspiria, Dario Argento's Suspiria here. Obviously a classic. I really enjoy this movie. It is just very creepy. It's got beautiful colors and lighting in it, and I just really enjoyed it. I got to see it in theaters recently, a couple months ago, and it was a great experience. This is, definitely probably in my top 20 or 15 or something like that. I watched this for the first time when I was 13, and I was blown away by it. I was surprised I actually enjoyed a movie like this back then at that age, because I was more into the, mainstream stuff, such as Halloween and all that. So I was surprised I liked it, and ever since I've been a pretty big fan. So Suspiria. After that, we have Mother of Tears, which is the second sequel to Suspiria. They're not that closely related, but it's part of the Mother's trilogy, and I don't own Inferno, nor have I ever seen it. I forget why I ended up with this movie, even though I still haven't seen Inferno, because I usually like to watch stuff in order, but ended up with this one. Still need to watch Inferno. Am curious about it because I know some people like it and some people don't like it too much, but Mother of Tears here, not a bad film, not that great though either. Compared to other movies such as Suspiria, it's not overly that fantastic, but I still enjoyed it a little bit. I would say halfway through I kind of started falling out of it, but the beginning portions I really enjoyed, so not a bad movie, but definitely not great. After that, we have The Tall Man, and I believe this was my mom's. Someone gave it to her or something like that, and then I ended up with it in my collection, and I looked up online, and a lot of people were saying how it's not that horror-ish, and it's kind of boring, and when I watched it, I would say I'd have to agree. I was kind of a little bit bored by it and just not that interested in it. I don't remember it a whole lot, to be honest, so I can't really tell you what happens in it or anything like that, but I would say definitely probably avoid it. It's kind of forgettable and probably not something I would ever rewatch. After that, we have Tenebrae. This is another Argento film. Austin actually gave me this, and he's really big into the giallos and Argento and all that, but for me, they're just not for me. This was definitely a great film, but to me, these movies I just find to be a little bit boring, and I get confused kind of easily with characters and just plot stories and things like that, so I kind of struggle to get through movies like this. They're definitely ones I wish I liked a little bit more, because I know so many people are into these movies, and they think, like, this specifically is a masterpiece, but for me, I just am not a huge fan, and hopefully later in life my taste will change, but for now, I'm just not a huge fan of films like this. After that, we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've had this copy forever. It's the one with the meat pack going on in the back. It says fresh after 30 years and everything. Kind of a cool release, kind of weird, but I think my dad actually got this, and then it kind of wound up in my collection once again, but what can I say? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's a masterpiece. It's definitely one of the scariest horror movies ever made. There's no movies that really compare to it, just based on how it's made and things like that. It feels almost documentary style, and I just feel like no one else can really capture that feel. So for that, I've always really enjoyed Texas Chainsaw and will continue to enjoy it. It's not one that I rewatch a whole lot, but when I do, I absolutely love it. Then we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I got this one signed by Bill Moseley. He signed it with Chop Top, which is pretty cool. I met him at a convention once, and didn't really talk to him too much, just kind of got my thing signed because I get kind of shy around people like that, but he was a really nice guy either way, and I'm happy I got this signed because love his character in this, love this movie. I would probably rewatch this one more than Texas Chainsaw just because it's more lighthearted and comedic and just entertaining than the first movie, where the first movie is just a straight up horror film. And this is definitely one I go back to more than that because I like it more every time I watch it, and I just love the radio setting, and I love Stretch and all the characters in this movie. I know some people really have mixed opinions on this one because it's so different from the first movie, but I really enjoy it. After that, we have Leatherface Chainsaw 3. This movie, the first time I watched it, I really thought it was enjoyable and entertaining. I really liked Leatherface, and it's crazy that I felt that way because upon rewatch, I felt the exact opposite. I found this movie to be quite bland, I guess you could say. There just didn't feel like there was a lot going on. I hated all the characters and the family. I think it's because I realized how there's really just no continuity going on in this movie, and I hate that, honestly. You know, I could let it slide a little bit, but I don't know. It just always kind of bothered me in the Chainsaw films, but I still find them to be entertaining. This one, however, I just find to be kind of boring and bland. I don't know. I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it, but for whatever reason, I just don't care for it now, and I've heard a lot of other people say the same thing, and I don't know. It's just kind of weird. So yeah, very lukewarm on Texas Chainsaw Part 3. After that, we have Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation. This is definitely a horrible movie. This is one that was on TV quite a bit when I was younger for some reason, and I would always watch it or watch bits and pieces of it, and I was always just kind of confused by what was going on in it because I think I'd only seen the first one and this one back then at that point, so I was like, what the heck even is this? It's nothing like the first one. I didn't really know much about the franchise, and back then I would watch it though because I found it to be pretty entertaining, and now I see how bad of a film it really is. I feel like Matthew McConaughey was the only one kind of trying in this movie, and even then he's kind of over the top, and just everyone in this movie is very annoying. You know, it can be kind of funny, I guess, and entertaining to some people, but to me the movie is just kind of annoying nowadays. I don't know, I just do not care for it at all. Then we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. You know, I remember when this first came out, my mom didn't want me to see it because she thought these movies were just gross, so it took me a while to actually get to watch this one, and when I finally watched it, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a solid film on its own and also a solid remake. It doesn't feel a lot like the original. There's some aspects to it that are similar. Obviously, you have the kids kind of going on this road trip, and you know, there's a hitchhiker and stuff like that, but it's all done very differently, and I kind of appreciate that about it. It doesn't try too hard to copy the original, which is a masterpiece, and this one kind of, you know, became I don't want to say classic because it's not that old, but its own gem of its own, I guess. But yeah, I really like this movie. It's a pretty good remake. Don't really like this case too much just because it's so big compared to my other DVDs, and it's kind of annoying to put it on the shelf, but other than that, great film. Then we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, obviously the prequel to the remake, and I really enjoy this movie too, and nowadays I think I like it even more than the remake. I used to be the other way around, where I like the remake more than this one, but I find this one to be very brutal and a little bit more entertaining than the remake. Like I said, both movies are fantastic, but I just find this one to have more rewatchability for me personally. It's always on Netflix, it seems like, and it's always one that I'll throw on Netflix when I don't feel like watching anything new, and I don't really feel like paying attention to a movie, but I want to put something on. This is one that I always tend to put on for whatever reason, so, which is kind of weird because it's like more of a brutal movie. It's not like it's very fun or anything, but I enjoy this one quite a bit. Then lastly, for the Texas Chainsaw movies, we have Texas Chainsaw from the year 2013, and this is another one I watched for the first time on Netflix, and I was surprised because I didn't realize a new TCM had come out. I didn't know if this was a sequel to the remakes or what it was exactly, so I put it on, and I remember back then kind of enjoying it actually, but you know, upon rewatch you start seeing all the flaws to it and plot holes and things like that, and it's just not a great movie at all. Plus, it's got some cringy dialogue going on in it, and characters in there are pretty stupid at times. I do like the look of Leatherface in this film, but other than that, it's not too great. I will say I'd probably watch this one over part 3 and part 4 though, but still, that's not saying too much. Next up, we have Them. I think this was a French Extreme movie, if I'm not mistaken. So I picked it up because I've seen other French Extremes. I really like them. This one, however, I found to be kind of the weakest. Don't remember a whole lot about it. I know it's about a couple that's just living their lives, and then they kind of start getting terrorized by these people one night, and, you know, kind of a scary plot there, but I've seen it before, and I also feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, I think this was a darker film, like literally, like the lighting was kind of dark in it, so for that kind of takes me out of movies sometimes if I can't see what's going on, and if I'm remembering correctly, this one had that, so not my favorite, but I do think it was a little bit enjoyable just by the plot alone. Next up, we have The Thing prequel or remake. I think this is supposed to be the prequel to the 1980s version, John Carpenter's version. I've only seen this one once, and I remember really liking this one as well. I'm curious to recheck it out to see if I feel the same way. I think they use more CG than practical effects in it, and that's kind of unfortunate because that's what makes the 80s version so good, is the practical effects, but other than that, I don't remember this a whole lot. I just remember that I did like it, so it's one that I do want to go back to and see if I feel the same way. After that, we have Trick or Treat, which is, you know, the epitome of Halloween. I know many people know about this movie, so you can't really say much on it, but it's definitely a great, great anthology and Halloween film. You know, I just love how the stories are actually interwoven, and it's not just a bunch of random shorts with some stupid wraparound like most anthologies are. You really don't see anthologies like this film, and I really appreciate it for that creativity alone, and this is the perfect movie to put in every Halloween time, maybe even more so than John Carpenter's Halloween. This one and the original Halloween, though, are two movies that I definitely want to watch every single Halloween time. It's just a great film. Next up, we have Troll 1 and Troll 2, double feature here. JP gave me these for Christmas, and the first Troll I found to be pretty entertaining. I was surprised I actually enjoyed it because it seemed like something I just wouldn't like because I'm not into that fantasy, weird stuff like that I know is going to be kind of bad, but I actually enjoyed it and paid good attention to it and found it to be an okay movie. I think I gave it like a 6 or 5 out of 10, which, you know, isn't too bad for a movie for what it is. But anyway, Troll 2, of course, is known for being the best worst movie of all time, and I agree. It is a really bad movie. The acting is just awful in it, and you know, it feels like you're watching a middle school play at times. A lot of stuff in it doesn't make sense, and but I found it to be really entertaining. I'm so glad I finally got to watch it. Once again, that was a movie that I never thought I would like or appreciate, even if it was considered to be you know, so bad it's good. Sometimes those movies are just bad to me, but I'm glad I did watch it, especially because after that, JP also gave me the best worst movie documentary here, which follows mainly the dude who played the dad. I forget what his name is. I think his first name is George, but I forget fully. But he is a dentist in real life, oddly enough, and the documentary kind of follows him, and then you also get to meet with almost all the other actors from the Troll 2 film, and some of them are just out of their minds, and it's so weird to see that half the people in the movie are actually crazy in real life, and it's also kind of sad at times. You kind of feel bad for these people, but at the same time, it is highly entertaining, and there's just so much great stuff going on in this documentary. I highly recommend it if you've seen Troll 2. I watched this right after watching Troll 2 as well, because it was fresh in my mind, and to watch this, I knew everything they were talking about. So I would highly recommend watching Troll 2 and then watching this right after, because it is very entertaining. Then we have Turistas. This was a movie that JP told me I should grab. We were at a store one day, and I was looking for some movies to buy, and he recommended this one, so I decided to go ahead and pick it up. And I remember finding it to be a really good, really solid movie about, some people go on a vacation, end up mixed up with some bad people. It's your basic generic story there, but, I thought it was pretty solid, had some decent moments in it, and there's even a part that involves going underwater that made me really uncomfortable because I have a fear of drowning, so it was definitely very suspenseful with that. I don't remember it a whole lot, but I do remember liking it. After that, we have When a Stranger Calls, the original. I believe this is from the 70s, the late 70s, and I gotta say, I found this to be pretty boring, personally. I know some people enjoy this one. To me, I didn't realize that the whole, stranger calling part is only at the beginning, and then the rest of the movie is kind of its own thing. I did not know that going into it, and I just found it to be kind of boring and just not really for me. It's one that I definitely would be curious to rewatch to see if I feel the same way, but it just wasn't what I was expecting, so I was not a big fan, but I know that there are fans of this film. After that, we have When a Stranger Calls, the remake from, I believe, 2006, and I'm not going to lie, I always really enjoyed this. It's one I used to rewatch a lot whenever it first came out, and I know my mom really enjoyed it as well, and I will say, though, I have not watched it since I was a kid, so I'm not sure if I would still feel the same way today, especially since so many people think it's a piece of crap. So this is another one that I do want to rewatch one day just to see if I still feel the same way about it or if I see it the way other people do. But for nostalgia purposes, I've always really enjoyed it. I don't care. Everyone hates it, but I like it. Then lastly for this part, guys, we have Wolf Creek, another one that I've only seen once, but I found to be pretty enjoyable. This was a really, really hyped up movie, so I found it to be a little overrated when I watched it, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't really see the big deal behind it. I think it's because I didn't feel like it was as brutal as some people made it out to be, but nonetheless, I still found it to be a good movie, scary story of people in the middle of nowhere getting harassed by some dude. So, still a great movie. At the time I watched it, it was very hyped up for me, and I was a little disappointed with that aspect. But other than that, a great film. So, that is it for part 9 of my entire horror movie collection here. Like I said, probably only one more time with the DVDs, or one more video rather, and then I'm going to go ahead and get into the Blu-rays finally, which I've definitely accumulated a lot of Blu-rays since I started this series, so that'll be interesting. But thank you guys for joining me for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.